The opinions and views expressed by individuals during this broadcast are their own and may not be the opinions of this network, their group, or other organization they may be involved with.
I'm looking at myself, reflections of my mind. It's just the kind of day to leave myself behind. So gently swaying through the fairyland of love. If you'll just come with me, you'll see the beauty of Tuesday evening news. Tuesday evening
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Psychedelic Reporters for this Tuesday, the 12th, here on NOK Network. Episode I forgot, the video news podcast focused on psychedelic medicine being reported on mainstream media. Shout out to the guys in Dead Ringer from Kirkland Lake, Ontario, for the awesome intro track, originally recorded by the Moody Blues, with some customized changes for our show. I am joined by my amazing joint host, Tara Simpson, along with the one and only Bufo Alberius, who has chosen all of our stories for us. Hello, Tara.
Well, hello, hobbies, and hello, everyone. I'd like to take a minute to introduce Bufo. He is our Sonoran desert toad, or Colorado mud toad. Did you know he emits DMT from his skin? And while that sounds like great fun, park rangers would like to remind everyone, please don't lick the toads.
Don't lick the toads. Don't. It's not nice. And there's so many ways to get psychedelics nowadays.
Absolutely.
That being said, let's start off on our first story right away. And that is of SciPost.org. SciPost.org would like to novel psychedelic compound 25C NBIF shows rapid antidepressant effects without the addictive traits. Now, we have read about this starting, but now this is further along. And this is written by Karina Petrova.
Yeah, this is an interesting article. A newly studied synthetic psychedelic compound promotes rapid structural growth in brain cells and reverses depressive behaviors in rodents. The drug, known as 25C-NBF, appears to lack the addictive qualities and sensory disruptions associated with similar recreational substances. These results were recently published in the journal Molecular Psychiatry. Depression is a widespread mental health condition that affects millions of people globally. Symptoms range from persistent low mood to a profound loss of interest in daily activities. Many conventional treatments provide inadequate relief and require weeks or months to begin working. This delayed onset has driven researchers to explore alternative options, including psychedelic drugs that might change the brain much faster. Psychedelics are gaining attention because they can act as psychoplastogens. These are substances capable of rapidly altering the physical structure of brain cells. In people with depression, parts of the brain associated with mood regulation often lose synaptic connection, which are the communication points between neurons. Psychedelic compounds are broadly categorized into two different chemical classes. Tryptamines, such as psilocybin and dimethyltryptamine, naturally occur in some plants and fungi. Phenolphthaleamines include synthetic compounds like mescaline analogs and the 2C series of drugs, while some synthetic phenolphthaleins induce strong antidepressant effects. They can carry a high risk of recreational abuse and heart problems. Nuria Nadal Graticos, a pharmacologist at the University of Barcelona, and her colleagues initiated a study to determine if a slight modification to these chemical structures might alter the safety profile. They focused on specific chemical analogs known as NBF compounds. The research team sought to evaluate the biological effects to see if they retain therapeutic benefit without triggering addictive behavior. To begin with, the researchers conducted experiments on lab-grown cells to observe how these variations of the NBF compound interact with serotonin receptors. Serotonin is a chemical messenger in the brain involved in mood regulation. Its 2A receptor is the primary target that produces a psychedelic drug's hallucinogenic effects. The team observed that the compounds bound tightly to the serotonin 2A receptor. At the same time, the chemical showed a very low interaction with the serotonin 2B receptor. This detail is notable because long-term activation of the 2B receptor by medications has been linked to heart valve damage in previous studies. While analyzing the serotonin 2A receptor, the researchers looked at how the drug activated different intercellular pathways. Receptors can direct signals down multiple routes, a concept known as biased agonism. The team found that the NBF compound activated the receptor in a balanced way, behaving similarly to natural serotonin. Wow, that's kind of cool.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, very, very cool. The scientists next conducted tests on male mice and rats to observe the physical and behavioral effects on the drug. When administered to mice, the NBF compounds cause a moderate head twitch response. This rapid side-to-side head movement is a standard marker used in animal models to gauge how strongly a drug might cause hallucination in humans. The head twitches were less frequent than those induced by more potent psychedelics, suggesting a relatively mild hallucinogenic effect. The researchers also subjected the mice to sensory processing tests using a startle reflex measurement tool called pre-pulse inhibition. In this test, a quiet sound is quickly followed by loud noise. Usually the quiet sound primes the brain, causing a smaller startle reaction to the loud noise. Often hallucinogenic drugs disrupt the sensory gaining ability, meaning the brain becomes overwhelmed by environmental stimuli. It cannot block out the ambient noise. The mice treated also the NBF compounds exhibited normal startle reflexes with no signs of sensory overload. The animals also showed normal walking pattern and exploratory behavior inside their test enclosures. A major component of the study was evaluating whether the drugs are addictive. The researchers used a standard behavioral test where mice were allowed to choose between two chambers. One chamber was previously paired with the drug, the other with a neutral saline solution. The mice did not spend extra time in the drug-paired chamber, indicating the substance was not rewarding to them. In another experiment, rats were placed in specialized cages and trained to administer methamphetamine, a highly addictive stimuli, by pressing a retractable lever. Once the rats learned the behavior, the researchers replaced the stimulant with the NBF compound. The animals quickly stop pressing the lever. This behavior, extinction, mirrors what happens when a drug is replaced when a harmless saline solution with a harmless saline. Additionally, brain cells using a microscopic probe revealed the drug did not increase dopamine levels in the animal's nucleus accumbens. Dopamine spikes in the brain region drive substance use reinforce addictive habits. Because those spikes were absent, the researchers characterized the drugs as having a low potential for addiction. Following these safety evaluations, the investigators focused specifically on the variation of the drug called 25C-NBF to test its ability to alter brain cells. They applied a chemical in varying concentrations to primary mouse neurons grown in laboratory dishes. After 24 hours after, they observed cells under a microscope using fluorescent markers. They treated neurons quickly sprouted new dendritic branches, which act like tiny antennas, receiving signals from other cells. The highest doses of the drug produced the highest number of the branches and increased the overall length of the cellular extensions. The drug also triggered an increase in the production of brain-deprived neurotrophic factor, a vital protein that supports the survival of growth neurons. The researchers then administered the drug to live mice and examined their brain tissue a day later. They found an increased number of dendritic spines in the prefrontal cortex and hippocampus. Both these brain regions play major roles in emotional regulation and memory, and both are typically impaired by prolonged stress. This is interesting.
Yeah. Where we leave off. Finally.
Yeah.
Finally, the researchers sought to find out if the cellular changes produced a tangible improvement in mood. They stressed the mice using two different methods. One group was placed in physical restraint tubes for 5 hours. The other group received 21 days of injections with cortisone, a stress hormone known to induce depressive symptoms in animals. Following the stress periods, the mice were given a single dose of 25C-NBF. Within 24 hours, the restrained mice were evaluated using a tail suspension test. In this procedure, mice are temporarily suspended by their tails. Typically, stressed and depressed mice will give up quickly and hang motionless, indicating despair-like behavior. The mice that received the experimental treatment exhibited increased effort and mobility, struggling against the restraint rather than giving up. This active response continued for up to a week after taking exactly one dose of the drug. The treated group outperformed the untreated stressed mice in these behavioral assessments across multiple testing days. The mice subjected to chronic hormone were given a sugary water preference test to measure their capacity to experience pleasure. Initially, the stressed mice favored regular water over the sugary option, displaying a lack of interest in normally enjoyable things. One day after receiving the experimental drug, the mice regained their preference for the sugary water. While the findings present a potential fast-acting treatment option, the researchers noted several limitations to their current work. This study only included male rodents, which prevented the findings from becoming completely generalized to female subjects. Further studies will be needed to include both sexes to determine if there's a biological response difference. The science team plans to continue testing to find the optimal dosing schedule. They want to explore exactly how the drug initiates structural changes in the brain and map out the exact cellular pathways. They also hope to find out if the antidepressant effect can be achieved at low at a dose low enough to avoid any hallucinogenic experiences entirely. That's really cool. That's some neat research. Not that I'm a fan of animal testing by any means. It sounds horrific, and I feel bad for those mice. But very neat science.
You know, we started reading it, and I'm like, oh yeah, synthetic drug. Oh man, with mice, man. And then we were reading it, and it's like right away, I'm thinking, how? Okay, wait a second. You injected him, and then you watched to see how it would react. But it's a mouse. How the fuck? Explain it to me how that's the same as
Louisiana Sweet Spot Cocktail Trail from May 1st through July 31st. Go to visitlasweetspot.com for a list of participating businesses to get your passport or download it. Visit our local establishments around Ascension Parish to eat, drink, and have a good time. Complete your
Thank you. Oh, okay. So that was a hint. Hey, stop talking and get on to the next article. Well, the next article is out of WAFB 9. It's Life Local if you live in New Orleans or basically Louisiana. I think it's Baton Rouge station. So bill to create psychedelic therapy program in Louisiana passes unanimously. And it heads to the governor. We've been watching this. They had a task force. They did a bill. Now, the proposal would create a state initiative for clinical studies involving ibogaine and psilocybin. Now, it's waiting for the governor by Liam Combs in Gray, Louisiana.
Yeah, this is pretty cool. Louisiana is one step away from creating a state-backed psychedelic-assisted therapy initiative focused on clinical research into treatments for mental health and substance use disorders. Senate Bill 43, sponsored by Senator Pat McMath, passed both chambers without opposition. The bill passed the Senate 37-0 and the House 97-0. It now heads to the governor. The bill would establish a psychedelic-assisted therapy initiative within the Louisiana Department of Health's Office of Behavioral Health. The initiative would help identify academic health centers conducting clinical trials and clinical trial-enabling studies involving psychedelic-assisted therapy. The proposal focuses on treatment for opioid use disorder, co-occurring substance use disorders, and treatment-resistant neurological or mental health conditions. The bill does not broadly legalize recreational psychedelic drugs. Instead, it would create a pathway for hospitals, universities, and research centers to coordinate clinical trials and treatment studies for under federal rules. Under the bill, psychedelic-assisted therapy would involve the use of psychedelic medication in a controlled clinical setting, along with trauma-informed psychotherapy before and after the medication is administered. The measure includes ibogaine, ibogaine-based therapeutics, psilocybin-based therapeutics, and similar compounds. Psilocybin is the active compound commonly associated with magic mushrooms. The push began with interest in treating veterans with post-traumatic stress disorder and traumatic brain injuries, but lawmakers say the research could apply to a wider range of mental health and substance use conditions. In a previous interview, veteran Nick Curtis said he traveled to Mexico with his father, a retired National Guard adjutant general, to undergo psychedelic treatment involving ibogaine and DMT. Curtis said the goal was to treat traumatic brain injuries and, in his father's case, post-traumatic stress disorder from a military deployment. Curtis and his father later founded Awaken Warriors, a nonprofit aimed at helping veterans and first responders access similar treatment retreats. I don't have words on how happy I would be if we could get this going in Louisiana and start getting to our people, Curtis said. McMath said the program could be funded in part by opioid settlement dollars. A lot of these funds, in fact, the vast majority of those funds have yet to be spent. And so I think there's an avenue here we could create, McMath said. And I'll just finish this up because apparently I read the whole article.
Yeah, no, that's all right. I'm a good listener. Jade said we had to practice our listening skills.
The bill comes as the federal government is moving to speed up a review of psychedelic-related treatments. President Donald Trump signed an executive order April 18th directing federal agencies to accelerate access for treatment for serious mental illnesses, and the FDA later announced actions tied to research involving psilocybin, PTSD, depression, and ibogaine-related compounds. If signed by the governor, the Louisiana law would take effect August 1st. Very cool.
Yeah, so I don't know what to think of this because, I understand that our state is into the whole movement of the environmental medicines and stuff. And, they always joke that, oh, well, if you make it make sense and money sense, that politicians will back you up here in this state. And so it almost looks like they're doing that, but it's like, are they behind the medical? Are the results going to be biased? Are the results, it's like,
it's hard to say.
Yeah, are they in it just for the money? Just, it sounds like they're going the whole what state didn't open it up, but they opened it up medically? Was that Oregon? No, Oregon you can grow mushrooms. Well, anyways, they're basically gonna, like, you can go get therapy for it, but you gotta pay the $5,000, to get your meds and to go through the whole treatments and stuff.
Yeah, I'd like to see that funded, either covered for people with low income or covered by Medicare or whatever. Like in our case, it would be OHIP here in Canada, right? That sort of treatment, it can be life-changing. And yeah, it might be expensive initially, but think of all the money that's been wasted on these people taking pharmaceuticals and other therapies that maybe were covered, and they've made no progress. So really, that was a waste of money. And to continue that same treatment would continue to be a waste. So let's fund this 1-time or 2-time treatment and see if we can help these people not need to be dependent on the healthcare system, hence freeing up dollars and getting them back into a place where maybe they can work and become taxpayers and be better in life, which then just further benefits the system that we're all trapped in, right?
Yeah. So, well, and with the FDA the way they're going with the federal, and then now the states are all doing that. So now that's it's kind of like how chiropractor got covered. Everybody started recognizing chiropractor, whatever the heck, however you say that word, but and then all of a sudden people were going to get in the treatment. So let's hope that works and we got a lot of vets down here.
Yeah.
So that helps. That helps that. It's that, I hope they're not just trying to copy Texas and all the other states trying to get money coming into the thing. Because if you were going to go that route, you should have went recreational.
Yeah.
But so it's medication time.
That's right, folks. It's time to pay some bills. So stay tuned for a word from some of our sponsors, and then we'll return with more articles Bufo has chosen making mainstream media news.
Ooh, that was not a good hit. Anyways, I'll go get one in 4 minutes and 20 seconds. I'll be able to puff so much here on the Psychedelic Reporters on NOK Network.
Hey, hi, my name is John Mark, aka Sublimator Warrior, and I would like to welcome you to Smoke Signal in Tyndinaga.
One dab make your whole dome drip sweat. One dad make the homies all dipset.
Smoke signals. Tyendinaga.
Smoke signals. Tyendinaga.
Smoke signals. Tyendinaga.
Ooey, ooey, gooey, that's a sticky dab. Might just have to put this one on Instagram.
Smoke signals. Tyendinaga.
Hold it in, feel it in your wrist.
Smoke signals. Tyendinaga.
Check us out in Tyendinaga. 55 Highway 49 in Tyendinaga. It's on the res, and we're open from 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. 7 days a week.
Advertising space available at NOK. Contact us for a rate sheet at knocknetwork.com. Send us a message on our social media platforms or email us at info@noknetwork.com. Dirty Dave, award-winning cultivator for over 4 decades. Dirty Dave, prized genetics fueled by advanced nutrients, original OG organics. Dirty Dave, award-winning products available at these fine establishments. Ask your shop to carry Dirty Dave. Contact us at dirtiesdoggies@gmail.com.
Now we get back to the show.
And we're back from our medication session live here on Psychedelic Reporters on NOK Network.
Man, we have another set of stories coming at you from the realm of psychedelic medicine. So let's get it. How can I remember that? But last week I couldn't remember anything of my freaking lines.
Stoner moments.
Right. Okay, so our next article comes out of Marijuana Moment, and don't get confused, it's still a psychedelic news channel. Minnesota lawmakers passed bill to legalize psilocybin therapy. Last week we talked about them going to do it, and this is written by Tom Engel.
Yeah, Minnesota House lawmakers have voted to legalize the regulated therapeutic use of psilocybin for adults 21 years and older. The reform was added to broader health policy legislation via an amendment on the floor of the House of Representatives that was adopted by a vote of 114 to 15 on Thursday. The amendment legislation now heads to the Senate for consideration. The psilocybin provisions that are advancing are similar to those of the standalone bill that was approved earlier this year by House Health, Finance, and Policy Committee. Through that legislation, though that legislation had also contained language to reschedule the psychedelic under state statute, which is not part of the new amendment. Representative Andy Smith, DFL, who sponsored both the new amendment and the standalone bill, said on the floor that psilocybin has shown through a lot of wonderful research and incredible ability to help those who are struggling with a wide variety of mental health concerns, from depression to addiction recovery, as well as PTSD, especially in veterans or public safety officers, and those who have experienced a traumatic event, as well as assault survivors. Representative Max Reimer, Republican, cited a recent psychedelic executive order signed by President Donald Trump, saying that the state legislation could help make Minnesota eligible to receive some federal funds that are being made available to support research on the issue. And the way I look at it is, at this amendment, is it creates an offering for people to not get hooked necessarily into drugs on an ongoing basis, but actually use a therapeutic like this to almost rewire the brain, he said. The testimony that we heard firsthand from especially a lot of our veterans was that this was life-changing. Representative Nolan West, Republican, said that the availability of federal funds for psychedelic research is one of the biggest reasons to do this today. Many states are in no way ready to utilize that money, so by being early, we can have a program that will help many people with severe conditions and will have it paid for by the federal government, he said. That money is going to be spent, and it might as well be spent on benefiting Minnesotans.
If you talk to a lot of veterans, or really anybody who has had this experience in this space, on how it's helped them, it's unique intervention that fundamentally improves brain function and can address things unlike anything we've seen, West said. Smith also filed a similar measure last year that did not ultimately advance to enactment. He has said the legislation was informed by recommendations from a state psychedelics task force that was formed under a separate law he sponsored. Under the current legislation, qualified patients 21 and older would review psilocybin-assisted therapy in an approved private residence or at a licensed treatment facility. A registered facilitator would need to administer the psychedelic. To support the program, would need to involve licensing to 20 to 50 facilitators with at least 50 or 3 approved testing facilities for psilocybin. No more than 1,000 patients could participate in the psychedelic therapy for the first 3 years of the law's implementation. There are 1,000 Minnesotans right now who feel lost, who feel like potentially that their life is over, that they can't function. Smith said ahead of the most recent vote, probably not all 1,000 will find this drug helpful, but a lot of them will, and it will lead them to a better life than they thought is possible right now. The House of the Cannabis Management could be responsible for overseeing the program and establishing rules, and a new psychedelic medicine advisory committee would be established. Psilocybin sessions would involve preparation with a patient-facilitated consultation, administration where patients would receive the psychedelic, and integration where patients would work in the professionals to process the therapeutic experience. Curtis Hanna, who has a volunteered lobbyist to pass prior legislation to establish the state psychedelic task force, told Marijuana Movement that he's extremely happy about the latest development. I couldn't have predicted that. 3 years later, the movement would gain this much support. Hanna, who serves as a board president of the Psychedelic Access Project, said advocating for cannabis law reform over the past 17 years was difficult. We narrowly passed the medications and cannabis and adult use legislation in 2023, so it's notable and encouraging that psychedelic reform is resonating differently. Separately, the Senate Finance Committee earlier this week adopted an amendment directing OCM to regularly analyze the availability of federal programs to provide funds to support state efforts to establish a psilocybin therapeutic use program for individuals aged 21 and older who have qualifying medical conditions to access use psilocybin under medical supervision.
And the rest is just on marijuana. So I think we can skip the rest of that part of the article.
Yeah, I liked it. It's interesting. Minnesota, man, right next. And Wisconsin's doing their studies and education and the UW Madison there. And so it's Minnesota's following suit now. I love it.
Lots happening down there in the U.S. compared to Canada. I got to give it to you guys down there. You guys are doing a lot more than we are up here with it, and that's promising.
Well, most politicians have used the federal excuse. And now that that dude signed that paper, they can't use that anymore.
Right.
So here we are for our next article on AspenTimes.com. An Aspen Psychedelic Symposium explores transformative world of natural medicine. And this is River Stingray wrote this.
Yeah. The 2026 Aspen Psychedelic Symposium will take place on June 6th and 7th at the Wheeler Opera House, bringing expert panels, groundbreaking research, and firsthand insights about the transformative medicine to the heart of Aspen. The 4th annual symposium is hosted by the Aspen Psychedelic Resource Center, Healing Advocacy Fund, and Aspen Public Radio to help educate the local community on the tradition, science, opportunities, and future of psychedelic medicine. The aim of the symposium is to provide accessible programming that connects locals with thoughtful voices and expands access to education that can be trusted and supportive, according to the press release. Regardless of your personal interest in these medicines, being curious about the tradition, science, and advocacy around psychedelic use is so important for us as individuals and as a community. Aspen Public Radio Executive Director Breeze Richardson told the Aspen Times. Since first launching this event in 2023, the opportunity to hear from truly remarkable doctors, scientists, practitioners, and researchers about the transformative world of psychedelic medicines has been a highlight of my role at Aspen Public Radio to produce public programming for Aspen and the Valley. Wow, that's cool.
The press release highlights the potential of the symposium to create a lifelong ripple effect, sparking youth empowerment, community transformation, and even national policy initiatives that reach far beyond Aspen. For Aspen Psychedelic Resource Center Executive Director Martha Hamill, it begins with a more holistic understanding of what psychedelics actually are. At the Aspen Psychedelic Resource Center, we consider the term to the experience and not the substance. It feels like life is so psychedelic. These experiences give us an opportunity to train for when life gets unexpectedly really weird. Grief is a psychedelic experience. Childbirth is a psychedelic experience. Falling in love is a psychedelic experience. The transformations those experiences catalyze are the core of the symposium's overreaching theme, exploring how psychedelic medicine can be used as a tool for healing. Speakers will discuss using ayahuasca ceremonies for citizens from Israel and Palestine to create peace, and how psychedelics can support regenerative agricultural and land management through reconnection with the earth. Healing really takes all forms, Hamill said. Speakers will include co-executive director at the MAPS, Ismail Lorido Ali, advocate and storyteller William Leonard Pickard, host of MAPS podcast Zach Leary, co-director of the Psychedelic Mental Health Access Alliance Hanifa Nayo Washington, psychedelic researcher and founder of the Ripples, Leo Roseman, PhD psychedelic advocate, and Aspen High School alumni Ronan Wood, and more. According to Hamill, these speakers carry on a conversation that can be happening in Aspen for decades. Hunter S. Thompson's proposed policy on drugs in the 1970s encapsulated much of what Colorado's Natural Medicine Act implements, decriminalize naturally occurring substances and providing harm reduction resources. Aspen had voted yes for the Natural Medicine Act by 81%. We are not the first people to having these conversations, Hamill said. We have generations of people who have worked with these medications who are supportive of psychedelic healing here. Huh. Wow.
Yeah. Where do we leave off here? I lost it.
At the same time,
attendees to June symposium don't need to have any prior knowledge or experience with psychedelics to attend. Psychedelics are not for everybody, Hamill said. They can be destabilizing and they need to be respected. What we're trying to do is open up the conversation so people can meet the experts and ask the questions and recognize their own readiness. In Hamill's eyes, utilizing psychedelics like psilocybin is similar to climbing a 14er, whatever that is. I always talk about using psychedelics like playing in the mountains. Psilocybin is like climbing a 14er, Hamill said. I'm assuming he's talking mountains now. Well, everyone might do it different for a different reason. She explains. You need to have a map. You need to know how to self-rescue. You need to respect the mountains and their power. And if you don't know what you're doing, hire a guide. For her, it's all about being mindful. My goal with the APRC and the symposium is I really want to see Coloradians have the same love and respect and reverence for the medicines as we have for the mountains, Hamill added. I would love to see our relationship with psychedelics match our community values that we have around this valley. Symposium passes are available at the link below, and it's $125 per person for the full 2-day event with single day passes for $70 each. It's actually not bad. $125 for 2 days of conferences is pretty reasonable.
Nice. That's I like that article. I've always liked Aspen in Colorado with their natural medicines. And as they state, they're voters. That's who's voting it in, is the residents, because they want access to those meds.
Yeah.
So our last article of the evening is psypost.org, and this is LSD microdosing linked to acute mood improvements in adults with depression. And this is written by Karina Petrova.
Yeah, this one is very near and dear to my heart because I use this as well in microdoses. Taking tiny, frequent amounts of psychedelic drug lysinogeric acid dimethylide might temporarily elevate mood for people diagnosed with major depressive disorder. In a small pilot study, participants taking low, precise doses reported feeling more energetic, creative, and connected on days they took the drug. The research was published in the journal Progress in Psychopharmacology and Biological Psychiatry. Classic psychedelic compounds like LSD are known for inducing profound changes in perception at high amounts. For decades, strict legal restrictions largely halted clinical research on this substance. Recently, scientific interest has renewed, and a practice called microdosing has gained popularity globally. This practice involves taking very small amounts of the psychedelic substance. The amount is high enough to potentially alter brain chemistry, but low enough to avoid causing hallucinations or severe cognitive disruption. Many individuals practice microdosing on their own to self-medicate for mental health conditions, particularly depression. Despite widespread anecdotal reports of psychological benefits, clinical trial data evaluating microdosing remains limited. Prior testing involving healthy volunteers suggests that low doses of LSD can acutely improve mood and increase feelings of sociability. This prompted researchers to investigate whether similar acute mood elevations occur in people actively experiencing depression. Dimitri Buono, a pharmacy researcher at the University in Auckland in New Zealand, led the investigation along with several colleagues. Major depressive disorder is a leading cause of disability worldwide. Symptoms go beyond sadness, encompassing a loss of interest in pleasurable activities, fatigue, and feelings of isolation. Standard psychiatric treatments frequently take weeks to become fully effective and do not relieve symptoms for everyone. Emerging research suggests that activating specific serotonin receptors in the brain with psychedelics may promote flexibility in brain signaling, offering a novel approach to treatment.
To test this approach, the research team enrolled 19 adults who all met diagnostic criteria for major depression. They underwent an 8-week treatment regimen. The first session took place in a clinical laboratory. Participants were given a precise 8 microgram dose of liquid acid LSD in a sublingual format. Sublingual administration involved holding the liquid under the tongue for about 30 seconds before swallowing. During this initial session, scientists took multiple blood samples over 6 hours. This process allowed the research team to track the drug's pharmacokinetics. Pharmacokinetics is a branch of pharmacology that focuses on how the body absorbs, distributes, and clears a drug from the bloodstream. For the next phase of trial, participants took the drug at home. They consumed the sublingual liquid twice a week for the remainder of the 8 weeks, totaling 15 home doses. At home, they had the option to slowly raise or lower the amount of the drug they were taking. The permitted range for the drug was strictly capped between 4 and 20 micrograms. To determine the individual dose, participants answered daily questions on a customized smartphone application. If they felt the drug was interfering with their regular day functioning, they were instructed to decrease the dose the next time. If they felt no psychological effects, they could slightly increase the dose during the next scheduled session. The smartphone program also tracked a variety of psychiatric metrics. Every evening, participants filled out a short survey evaluating their sleep quality from the night before. They rated their mental health using visual analog scales. A visual analog scale is a measuring tool that asks users to specify their level of agreement along a continuous line, then selecting a rigid multiple choice option. Within the program, participants rated how connected, creative, energetic, happy, irritable, and jittery they felt that day. It didn't say horny. Looking at the data across the 8 weeks, daily mood improved in specific patterns. On the specific days they consumed the microdose, participants logged higher levels of creative energy and social connectedness compared to the day immediately following the dose. On the first and the second days after taking the drug, participants reported feeling happier. In addition, irritability scoring dropped 2 days after consuming the dose. Wow.
Yeah, pretty cool, eh? These acute improvements in mood could theoretically counter some of the core symptoms of major depressive disorder. A common feature of depression is anhedonia, which is the inability to feel pleasure or find motivation to engage in social activities. If a patient feels a temporary surge in creative energy and social connection, they might be more likely to participate in a positive social behaviors. Engaging in rewarding activities can create a positive feedback loop that helps lift a depressive mood over time. Despite these daily mood boosts, the daily depression questionnaire used in the app did not yield significantly or statistically significant changes based on the dosing schedule. The researchers suspect that this was a measurement issue. The specific questionnaire that they used asked participants to evaluate their depression symptoms over the preceding 3 days. Because they filled this out every single day, the answers overlapped, making it difficult to isolate the effect of a single dosing day. A separate formal clinical interview conducted at the end of the entire trial showed an average drop in depression severity of 60% across the group. The blood analysis from the laboratory sessions provided detailed data on how the human body processes microdoses of specific substances. On average, the drug reached its peak concentration in the blood just over an hour after sublingual administration. This timing aligns closely with the onset of psychological effects reported by the participants. The pharmacokinetic data also revealed individual variations in how the drug was metabolized. When researchers compared the blood test results to the home dosing adjustments, they noticed a physiological pattern. Participants who naturally process the drug faster, resulting in lower peak concentrations in their blood, were more likely to gradually increase their home doses over the 8 weeks. Conversely, those with high blood sugar concentrations from the standard lab dose tended to keep their home doses lower. This suggests that participants were successfully adjusting their drug intake to achieve a consistent subjective effect, compensating for their unique internal metabolism. The daily surveys also asked participants to rate the strength of the drug's effect across the 15 home sessions. Participants did not report the drug feeling weaker or stronger over the 8 weeks. This finding is notable in pharmacology. The psychiatric substances cause tolerance, where the brain adapts and requires more of the drug to achieve the same effect. Other drugs can cause sensitization, where repeated use leads to stronger reactions. In this trial, the perceived effects remained entirely stable, indicating no rapid tolerance or sensitization to the repeated low doses of the drug. While these results appear promising for the field of psychiatric research, the study design has severe limitations. It was an uncontrolled, open-label pilot trial. Every single participant knew they were diagnosed with depression and knew they were receiving LSD. In psychiatric research, participant expectations often exert a massive influence on the reported outcome. A participant hoping for relief from depression might unconsciously report better moods simply because they believe the treatment will work. The psychological phenomenon is known as the placebo effect. Without a control group receiving an inactive substance for comparison, scientists cannot definitively isolate the chemical effect of the drug from the psychological effects of undergoing a novel treatment. The excitement of participating in a supportive clinical trial can elevate a person's mood independently from any pharmacological intervention. Additionally, the demographics of the group were limited. The trial included only 19 individuals, most of whom identified as male. A larger sample size is required to ensure these behavioral patterns hold true for the general adult population. Most participants were also taking standard prescription antidepressants simultaneously, meaning the drug's effect were interacting with the existing medications. Because of these limitations, the research team emphasized that these findings must be reviewed as strictly exploratory. The data successfully proved that participants can manage their own microdosing regimen at home with remote monitoring. However, proving the clinical efficacy of this treatment will require randomized double-blind trials. In those future studies, researchers will compare an active drug group against a placebo group. Only then can scientists determine if tiny amounts of the psychedelic are true medical asset for treating major depressive disorder. And here we go with the clinical trials and placebos. And I mean, at the end of the day, if they benefited, are we not making them better? Even if it is a little placebo effect for that person? The idea is that they get better.
Right, and then treatment, like even they say like at treatment centers that somebody's going to open it up to whoever they want to open up, and some days it's not their counselor; it's like the cook.
Right. Yeah.
So it's I don't know, man. It's you can't what someone chooses for a treatment. You know, that's the same thing with the pill, the little green pill. If they make it green, they were gonna make someone more happy.
Yeah. Yeah, okay. For sure.
Thank you for joining us here on Psychedelic Reporters on NLK Network and tuning in to our video podcasts on NLK Network's Rumble and YouTube pages, as well as our social media sites.
That's right, folks. We hope you enjoyed your update today on mainstream coverage of psychedelic medicine advancements from around the globe.
Many thanks to our sponsors and to my joint hosts, Tara Simpson and the Buffalo Various, for choosing our stories, and Kim Cooper for helping us produce the show and shit, and to you, our listeners, for joining each week on Psychedelic Tuesday. Let's hear from Dead Ringer again for Kirkland Lake. Oh, way out!
I'm looking at myself, reflections of my mind. It's just the kind of day to leave myself behind. So gently swaying through the fairyland of love. If you'll just come with